Welcome back to another video. Purple Political Talk here. Today is Monday, July 11th, 2022. And today we're going to be taking a look at the 2024 Republican primaries in the presidential election and take a look at what really are the possibilities right now. Look at the data, what I would say the best scenarios are for the Republican Party and all of that good stuff. But before we do begin, I want to remind you guys to like, subscribe, and to turn on post notifications to be up to date with our latest content. And also that channel memberships are now open. If you would like to become a channel member, you can press the join tab next to the subscribe button to become a channel member. And in that spirit, I did want to give a very big thank you to Adam Hurst, our Purple Political Talk channel member, for all your support. So now that we've gotten all of that out of the way, let's get started with the video. So I think that the 2024 Republican primaries are going to be one of the most interesting primaries they've seen in a while, and one of the most fluid at that. And what do I mean by this? I think that this is going to be one of the primaries in quite a while that one is going to have like so many moving pieces that it's not even ridiculous. I think that because we haven't had the scenario where a sitting president has lost in over so many years, and then a sitting president with an ego as big as Donald Trump's. You haven't seen a scenario like this where a nomination for president ends up looking like this. Last time that we had a sitting president lose was Jimmy Carter. And Jimmy Carter really did not want to go back into the presidential sphere because he really lost support from everyone. But in Donald Trump's case, I think it's really different. Donald Trump, some argue that he lost the election. I'm not really going to get into that in today's video. But when you look at Donald Trump and the way that he got out of office, he pretty much still had his base. His base was ready there, and his base is a very big chunk of the Republican Party. But at the same time, the way that he also left the whole stop the steal, it also created a lot of different possibilities within the party. And if you take a look at right now, some of these candidates that publicly express interest in running, it kind of creates that sort of first aspect primary where you have some of your people like Liz Cheney, your Adam Kinzinger's, your Mike Pence's, who are really against Trump at the end of his presidency and, are formidable, opponents for Trump in a primary. And if Trump does choose running, and I'm going to get into if Trump runs at all, but I think that's one of the first things that, Trump should expect if he does run is the whole side of the Republican Party who turned on Trump at the end of his presidency. Now, I think that at the end of the day, a lot of these candidates are pretty much a joke. I mean, Liz Cheney is pretty much a joke within the Republican Party. Adam Kinzinger. I would go as far as saying maybe even Mike Pence. Like, these are people who, despite them having could have a lot of support. And I think that pretty much if Trump runs in a primary against anyone else that is not Ron DeSantis, and we're going to get to the big elephant in the room, which is Ron DeSantis, a little bit later, I think Trump is going to have an easy way to get to the nomination. If he does end up running at all. I think that at this point in time, I'm not sure if Trump's going to run. I think it's looking like he will. And I don't think there's no point in him announcing from here all the way till after the midterms, because if he announces now, he's going to put his party in a lame duck phase for no reason. Because, people are going to be like, oh, we can't vote for the GOP because Trump's up and coming. And then we have to remember, Trump is a very polarizing figure within the, not only within the country, I mean, within the Republican Party to a certain extent, but amongst the country. And I think that could be one of the biggest death blows for the Republican Party, if Trump announces his presidency right away, because they're not going to be able to really attack Biden that much, because then the Democrats are going to be going back to the anti-Trump campaign, which sort of worked in 2020. But I think the chances of him running are high. Now, when we look at the Republican primaries, I think what really needs to be discussed is there really going to be a formidable challenger to Trump? And I think the answer to that is yes. I think we're going to have a competitive primary. Not necessarily maybe that's going to be competitive in percentage-wise, but we're going to have a lot of candidates. So I already discussed kind of the first bunch of candidates. I think, honestly, out of the whole stop the steal, like anti people, Mike Pence is probably the most formidable opponent that could actually end up challenging Trump in the primary. Why? I think that a lot of the evangelical voters that end up voting for Trump, it was because of Mike Pence. Mike Pence added that credibility, and I think that he could really um, show up and give Trump that challenge with that voter base. And someone else that I think really has, I guess, a serious chance of running a campaign is Tom Cotton. If you look at Tom Cotton, he's been meeting with donors, presenting why someone other than Trump is necessary, and I think maybe even if Trump runs for president, he would also make the run. Now, big elephant in the room, of course, is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Some of these other people, they have a good chance of running. I think Glenn Youngkin's another person that might end up running. But I think there's going to be two scenarios. The first thing I'm going to talk about is a primary with Trump in it. I think it's the best way to organize ourselves. If Trump is within the primary, which we could see some polls right here, with Trump in the mix, he has a good chunk of voters, but there's still a whole other chunk of candidates that could take a whole other percentage. Some polls have him at 38, DeSantis at 17. You see DeSantis generally in most polls polling around 20%, in some polls 30%. Right now, we also have to remember it's pretty hard to get with primary polling because one, we're so far out, and second of all, it's not a clear yet whether Trump will run or not. So Ron DeSantis at this point, it's clear he's the only person that I would say, if Trump runs, has a very good chance at beating him in a primary. Now, I'm gonna get into this by saying I think Ron DeSantis is really considering running for president in 2024. I mean, he would be a fool not to. I mean, he's one of the most popular governors across the nation, and he has a lot of name recognition. You could ask pretty much anyone across the country if they know who Ron DeSantis is, and whether it be for a good reason or a bad reason, or people know who Ron DeSantis is. And I think that polarity, where Democrats don't like him, but a lot of Republicans do like him, is going to be very beneficial in a primary. And, I think if things stand right now, it's looking like Ron DeSantis may end up running. Why? Let's take a look at the 2022 Florida governor endorsements. I know there still hasn't been the primary, and of course, as we get closer to the election day, endorsements will start coming in. But Donald Trump has yet to endorse Ron DeSantis. I think that's something that's very interesting. And Ron DeSantis has clearly not asked for his endorsement. Now, why do I think this is relevant? If you think about a 2024 primary challenge, it's going to be pretty difficult to say, like, you pretty much suck, and when it comes time for the primary, you suck, and, I'm better candidate because when you're endorsed by this person, if you were asking for this person's endorsement. So I think that's a reason why Ron DeSantis might actually be considering even a run against Trump. Now, again, let's take a look at these polls. With Trump in the mix, again, we see kind of Trump being the outstanding figure here, that we see him do very well when it comes to polling. And I think that to a very big extent, much of the Republican base could end up voting for Trump. Now, I think that there is really a movement for DeSantis. I think that DeSantis, one of the things that he has that I actually think is going to be very, very good for him is, one, he kind of has a same Glenn Youngkin appeal to a certain extent, in the sense that he has, if you look what he's done in Florida, it's tackled a lot of those key issues that a lot of suburban voters care about. Schooling, a lot of these different things that, someone like Glenn Youngkin campaigned on, is sort of the things that Ron DeSantis has actually done in Florida. And I think the other thing that really is helping Ron DeSantis at this time is essentially, look at this. At a national level, Donald Trump is not popular. Neither is Joe Biden. And with this polarity, I think a lot of American voters are going to say, we don't want a repeat of 2020. And I think if you were to ask 100 Americans today, I think 90 of them would say they wouldn't want a repeat of 2020, because you're kind of being left with the same, two old options. And honestly, I think at this point in time, Trump's role within the Republican Party is very interesting in the sense that he definitely does have that power where, pretty much an endorsement for Trump is amongst one of the golden grail of endorsements. But at the same time, it becomes also an electability question. Even against someone like Joe Biden, who has atrocious approval ratings, is it really possible for Trump to beat them? And I mean, if you look at the polls, the answer is yes. There's a possibility nationwide, +5, +3, +6. And I mean, that's interesting to see. I mean, again, polls this far out, especially with this type of race, is very hard to tell. But again, with Biden and where he is right now, I think almost anyone can beat him. I think that generally speaking, this is how I put it: any generic Republican could beat Biden, but Trump might be the only person that can't beat Biden, right? But then Trump, the only person that he can beat is Biden. So that also kind of plays into what ends up happening with the 2024 Democratic primaries, which I'm going to make a video later on this week about, because that's also, again, in the air. But again, it becomes a question of electability. I think that when things start getting into the thick of it, when voters are faced with, with that reality, hey, Ron DeSantis might be a better option. And I think Ron DeSantis can make that move. I mean, Ron DeSantis already has that name ID, and looking at some polls like this poll in New Hampshire, there is it's within the margin of error, but 39% of New Hampshire voters have DeSantis as their first choice. Again, this is one poll. It could be an outlier, but I think it's telling that in one of the first states, it's getting really close. Now, this is all if Trump is within the mix. What if Trump is not? I think if Trump is not in the mix, you're probably going to see probably a primary field made up of people like Mike Pence, Ron DeSantis, Tom Cotton probably, I would say. Out of the rest of these people, maybe Glenn Youngkin may make a run for the presidency. I think that at the end of the day, if Trump is not in the mix, I think it would be pretty easy for Ron DeSantis to stroll his way to the presidency, because he really exemplifies kind of Donald Trump's, I guess, political beliefs without Trump's really big personality. And I think at the end of the day, if it wasn't for Trump's personality, and I would say what is somewhat of a lack of electability compared to other Republicans in the field, Trump would steamroll to the nomination. I think he could still steamroll to the nomination, but not as easily. And really, compared to other Republicans, I think Ron DeSantis really does have that upper edge. I mean, honestly, I think at this point, the other person I think could do very well in nationwide race could be Glenn Youngkin. But I think at this time, Ron DeSantis is really the one that has that name recognition. Ultimately, there is still a lot of time to show what will happen. I think right now what's going to end up happening is Donald Trump's going to end up running. You're going to see primary challenges from a lot of the anti-Stop the Steal crew, Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, Mike Pence. There's people on here that they have as potential candidates that I think absolutely will not run. I don't think Marjorie Taylor Greene would make a run. That's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. But ultimately, I think it comes down that Donald Trump is likely going to be running. And Ron DeSantis might end up running. And honestly, for Ron DeSantis, I think the time is 2024. I mean, he could easily become the next Chris Christie. Wait 4 years, get forgotten, left behind. And, ultimately, a lot of people say, well, that won't really happen. Well, Chris Christie was still the governor of New Jersey in 2016. And he got left behind. So, at this point in time, a lot of things are still to tell. And these primaries are going to be very, very interesting. And I want to know what you guys think. What do you guys think down in the comments? I think that there's a lot of information here to analyze, and a lot of these polls have very conflicting results. So I want to know what you guys think, and I also want to let you guys know that it looks like today I will be doing a double upload. So this is a video for the morning, and then later today, probably in the afternoon, evening, I will be posting my U.S. Senate prediction. I promise you guys. I'm sorry I couldn't post yesterday because I had a very busy day, but I'm glad that I'm back and being able to bring you guys the best political content in an unbiased way. So guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If so, please give it a huge thumbs up, like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications to be up to date with our latest content. I'll see you guys in the next video, and goodbye.